In this lesson, we're going to talk about the basic properties of math. We're going to talk about properties of addition and properties of multiplication. And these are actually listed right here on this screen. We're going to talk about the commutative, the associative, and the identity property. The first property of addition is going to be the identity property. And the identity property says the sum of 0 and any number is that number. So go ahead and fill those in on your notes. And here's just a couple of examples. If I add 3 plus 0, I'm going to get 3. So what I started with is what I end with. If I add negative 4 plus 0, I'm going to get negative 4. So anything added to 0 will be itself. The second property of addition that we're going to look at is called the commutative property, and that tells us that changing the order of the numbers does not change the sum. I'm still going to get the same answer. So the example that we have, 2 plus 3 equals 3 plus 2. Well, I switched the numbers around. I changed the order. Do I still get 5? Yeah. If I want to add negative 2 plus negative 6, and I switch the order around and put negative 6 plus negative 2, do I still get negative 8? Yes. So the commutative property tells me I can move the numbers around, but it doesn't change the answer. I still get the same answer. The third property of addition is the associative property, which says changing the grouping of the numbers does not change the sum, or in other words, you're still going to get the same answer. In this property, you're going to have grouping symbols such as parentheses or brackets, and we'll go ahead and look at an example. 1 plus 2 in parentheses plus 3 equals 1 plus, in parentheses, 2 plus 3. Well, do they equal the same thing? In this one, I have to do parentheses first and say 3 plus 3. And in this one, I'm going to say 1 plus 5. Do they both equal 6? Yes. So we need to come up with some method to remember these properties. Associative and commutative seem to be the ones that students get confused the most, so we'll go over some little sayings when we review notes tomorrow. Okay, so now let's take a look at the properties of multiplication. There will be 4 properties of multiplication. We had 3 with addition, but there'll be 4 with multiplication. The first one that we'll look at is the identity property, which says any number times 1, any number times 1 is that number. So let's say I take 20 times 1, I'm going to get 20. If I take negative 14 times 1, I'll make that a 1, I'm going to get negative 14. If I take negative 6 times 1, I'm going to get negative 6. So that's why we call it the identity property. What you start out with is what you end up with. Our second property of multiplication is the zero property. This one is new. We didn't have this with addition. But that says that any number times 0 is going to be 0. Doesn't matter what the number is. I could have 18 times 0. I'm going to get 0. I could have negative 230 times 0. I'm going to get 0. Okay? If I have 1/4 times 0, I'm going to get 0. Okay? So that's the zero property. Anything times 0 is 0. Our third property of multiplication is the commutative property. This states that changing the order of the numbers does not change the product. So now we're going to be looking at multiplication. So I could say 3 times 4 equals 4 times 3. I've moved them around. I changed the order, but I'm still going to get 12 equals 12. Or I could say negative 6 times 2 equals 2 times negative 6. I'm still going to get negative 12 on both sides. Okay, so changing the order, I'm still going to get the same answer. And we also have an associative property of multiplication. So this again says I can change the grouping of the numbers, or changing the grouping of the numbers, I should say, does not change the product or the answer. And again, remember, this is working with parentheses or grouping symbols. Okay, so let's look at an example. 1 times 2 in parentheses times 3. Is that going to equal 1 times in parentheses 2 times 3? Well, let's take a look. 1 times 2 is 2. 2 times 3 is 6. Does that equal 1 times 6? Absolutely. Okay, so again, these are properties of addition and multiplication only. Okay, here are your got it problems. The first got it problem, I want you to give an example of the zero property of multiplication. So just write out an example of that. The second got it problem is I want you to tell me what property of multiplication this example represents. And the third one is you need to do a little thinking. I want to know, can I use these properties of addition and multiplication with subtraction or division? Tell me why or why not, and give me an example to support your answer. In other words, prove your answer with an example that lets me know you know what you're talking about, or you understand what's going on. And then we will talk about these tomorrow. So good luck with your got it problems.